Hello everyone, for those who don't know me, I am Eureka. I used to play Paladins before I came to Marvel Rivals, and when I did come to Marvel Rivals, I played support from Season 1.0 to 3.5. I racked up around 100 hours within the role, and I peaked Eternity 30 in 3.5, before then deciding to switch over to long-range DPS. So the reason why I'm making this video is because I saw on Twitter, there tends to be a lot of discourse about supports, but I saw one tweet in particular that caught my eye, and it's the idea of, um, so you expect support players to like heal you, but then also not die or anything like that, and it's in relation to an earlier video of someone farming a solo Spider-Man when they're isolated, and I want to come out here and just like explain the main fundamental problem with having supports that are able to win every 1v1 duel like that, and um just in a way go over basic like fundamental flow of the game, almost, of like hero shooters in general. Because at the end of the day, this is a hero shooter. People will always say, like, oh, it's a superhero game. At the end of the day, this is a hero shooter, just like Overwatch, just like Paladins, and all that stuff. So, like those games, there needs to be a certain flow of logic that happens in order for the state of balance in a way, and just like the overall state of the game to be healthy. So, yeah. So I'm gonna cover that today.
Music
So
makes people happy.
we'll
Heroes make them
start with
safe.
Luna
Maybe I
here,
can do both.
and
There they are.
like obviously
Facing an
everyone knows about the
Edelweiss.
fact that Luna's damage is absurd.
Double kill.
Um, extremely fast, big snowball,
That's three.
right? And then they also gave her the ability to self-flake, so she deals even more damage,
Wow,
right?
four
Like
in
you
a
saw,
row.
she's under half now, right?
Five.
It's an
Me.
inherently
I put you
flawed
on ice.
balance choice, and it allows for way too much opportunity for like you now essentially, because she also heals like crazy. This healing output is still really good. It's single target, but you also
A
have
nice
clap,
deep freeze.
which lowers its cooldown whenever an elim happens, right?
Snowball fight.
I have cooldowns on,
I like the cold.
but like clap healing really good. I'm on self like, but you get the idea. And it goes on a cooldown,
I
and
put
it
you
goes
on
lower
ice.
after
There
that.
they are.
So inherently, there is like that. She already provides really good value through her healing, but then she also has like insane DPS to go along with it. You essentially have a 2-in-1 character. And it's why, like, if you want to climb and comp, one of the best ways to do it is quite literally you pick Luna and then you spam damage as much as you can. Right? Like, you obviously heal your team when you need to in critical moments, but for the most part,
I
you're
put
taking
you
off
on
angles,
ice.
you're fighting, you're basically
Double
playing
kill.
like Hella would. I miss that
That's
snowball,
three.
I'm a chud.
String of hits. Wow, four in a row.
Right? But
Five. That's amazing.
it's inherently flawed. And I saw that clip of the Spider-Man losing the isolated 1v1. And I see this discourse a lot of like you want supports to fall over, etc., etc. That's never the goal, right? Supports should not fall
See them?
over if
Right
they are
there.
playing like if they are playing if they are positioning and they have like good macro. Because if they have good macro, then it becomes a very difficult task of just like isolating them in the first place, right? See, because an isolated support, if you are getting isolated in the first place, that's the mistake right there, right? We have it's called like a DPS, for example. A DPS gets value through the
What's
fact
next,
that
then?
they can hit their long range
What's next,
shots, or if
then?
you're melee, you dive, you commit a lot of resources, you force a lot of resources from the enemy team, you force repositioning, you force a lot of things like that, right? That's where the inherent DPS value comes from. But the problem is that's it, right? They don't have anything else that like really goes for them in that sense. So if they die, their value is in a way less noticed than if a support dies. And the reason why it's less noticed is because in this game, healing is absolutely insane, and you're permanently getting value through your healing, right? This is value. I just saved that guy. That's value. It's inherent value that comes from playing the character. So, and that's the thing. Your value is so big on support that because healing is such huge value and you're constantly pumping out healing that you should it should almost be like a high risk high reward kind of thing where if you get isolated afterwards, that's a mistake on your end and you should be punished for it through dying and respawning. But that doesn't happen because we have such insane self-healing output that alongside this insane value you get from pumping out heals, you also just survive like crazy. It's difficult to balance around both. And I know people will argue like, "Oh, Phoenix does the same thing." Phoenix is also a very broken character, probably top 2 DPS in this game. And people want her nerfed. Like, this is common sense. We're not, like, this is well-documented common sense. But every time you mention something like that, for Luna, for Loki, for Invis, everything just goes haywire. I don't know. So yeah. The inherent problem is that as a support, like in other hero shooters, support, especially in Paladins, support involves playing around, like, positioning yourself such that the rest of your team can both benefit from what you're doing and you can benefit from what they're doing, right? It's this nice mesh. But when in Rivals, this combo isn't really necessary at the end of the day. You don't need to position yourself such that you benefit from your team. You benefit from yourself. That's the inherent problem. So we've removed that layer of complexity from positioning. You obviously still have to position in a way such that it benefits your team, but your opportunities to fight back are so insane that what's the point of trying to position around your team when you can just position around yourself and use whatever you have as survivability to just fight back? It's that's the main thing, right? And also like the DPS trying to kill you, that's their resources gone. Right, too. So now you've created an unessential neutral fight, if you do survive, and it creates like more problematic cases where the DPS might kill you, but it is at most a trade. It becomes at most a trade, and at a worst case they lose. It's very rare that a character, after using all their resources, will be able to come out unscathed, with like special exceptions being something like Spider-Man, for example, because 3 swings he can control the interaction himself, right? He can get in, he can get out. But other characters, if they want to commit to something like that, more resources have to be pulled out. Okay. I think I'll cover like things that have changed with support over time that I don't like. Especially from the perspective of someone who like really like I played support initially to fill, but I think the role was really good back in the earlier seasons, like 1.0, 1.5. 1.5 was weird, but 2.0, like that support strike was hilarious, by the way. Okay, so I'll talk about like the fundamental flaws with a lot of these characters. C&D doesn't really like. C&D is still flawed, but her neutral is so mid that it doesn't matter. And her main thing was she had the longest ult, and it was supposed to be a high risk, high reward until they buffed her HP. So that went out the window. But this character still has like an insane bubble, right? Double blind as needed, and blind is an insanely useful ability. You can combo it with so much stuff, such as Phoenix ult. You can use it to help with mag ult. Like one-shots that aren't one-shots, like, that aren't necessarily one-shots, become one-shots through Cloak Blind, and it's really insane. But obviously, she's not that insane right now, and I think the main reason why she's not that insane right now is because everything else is just so much more insane than her that it diminishes her value, despite the fact that she's still like mid A tier, mid to low A at that point. Loki is another example, right? We have invisibility, TP on demand, web green. It's 275. I like covers this a lot better than I probably can, but this character is also inherently flawed because this is a type of character that should never be 275. Like especially considering he has this ability on, what was it, a 30-second cooldown. This is insane. And then, of course, we have the worst ever balance change ever. That's right, Season 5.0, when they introduced this. This is, like, if we're talking top 3 worst balance changes in the game, in my opinion, number 3 is Bucky Earthbound, number 2 is giving Hawkeye that frozen arrow back in 2.0, and number 1 is this. And guess which one is still in the game? This is such, like... It's not the problem with the Marvel devs is they don't get why this is such a broken ability. It's not the fact that you can heal through it or anything. Like, yes, healing through it is nice, but that's not the inherent reason why. The inherent reason why is that you gain. This is basically an on-demand mag bubble. Right? Mag bubble is usually what, 10 seconds? This is on demand. 200 HP, blocks one-shots, blocks like so many ults in this game, and it gives you like another opportunity to escape. And this is one of the things that I absolutely like miss from the earlier times of Invis. You used to have to do something like this, right? Where you could play around your shield that you give to someone else. So this is one of those characters where your positioning was encouraged through playing with, like, you would benefit from your team. Remember what I was talking about earlier with the Paladins thing? Normally you position around yourself, but now this is a character that had to position around your team, right? So there was that extra layer of complexity to it, and it was great. They introduced this note, and now you don't have to do that anymore. They removed that layer of complexity immediately, and unless they either make Invis 225, which is never happening, or they revert Invis back to 4.5, this character will never have that layer of complexity back. It's just a harsh way that the game is designed. Obviously there's other power creep within the support role. Rocket, Adam, fantastic examples. We still haven't addressed the main thing with Gambit. I see this on Twitter a lot, where people are suggesting, because he has 2 modes, right? He has his heal mode, and he has his damage mode. They should do something similar for his ult, where you have 2 options, like a healing mode and a damage mode, and it basically splits the ult into, like, what the ult currently is, splits it into 2. And then if you choose one, you get like the speed and jump boost and more damage, but if you choose the other, you get like the healing part, and they can maybe buff the healing at that point, right? Giving that choice allows for more variety in Gambit's kit, but the problem is this character is so giga broken and this ult is so insane that it doesn't matter. Like, you still have to permaban this character. And obviously, like, we've seen a bit more tank power creep, which tanks were in a weird spot up until this point, but I definitely think starting in 6.5, they've been, like, a lot of, like, pretty much all these tanks now, in one way or another, have viability, minus this and minus this sometimes. And especially Cap, like, sometimes I'll see on Twitter people complain about Cap, and it's like, this is a top 2 tank right now if you ban Dino. It's just that this character controls the meta so badly that you have to ban him. Unless you have someone who wants to play him, and then you ban like 3 other things around him. So, fun. Yeah, that's the main problem with supports. It's the fact that if you get isolated, you should be punished for it, because that's you positioning incorrectly, and that's where your flaw as a strategist comes in. Because if you're a DPS and you miss your shots, that's where your value gets lost. But if you're in support and you miss, like, hitting your shots on support outside of hit scan Luna, which even then, not that insane. Hitting your shots on support is not as mechanically demanding, so your value has to come, or like your loss of value has to come from something else. which in this case is your macro, aka your positioning, aka your game sense. So if you don't have good game sense, you should be punished for that. Because you're going to isolate yourself, and in an isolated duel, the DPS should win. The tank should win, right? Because the support is essentially like that's the whole idea of like playing around and benefiting from how your team is playing. If you don't position around your team, then you should be punished for that as a support, since you're inherently losing. You're essentially breaking one of the fundamental rules of hero shooters at that point, because if you can do all that, there's no reason to play like DPS at that point. You just play support and get as much value as you can just by staying alive, right? Like there's a hierarchy of value at that point, and can't exactly control that. But yeah, so in conclusion to that tweet, yes, supports if they are isolated should die. No, if they are together, they should not die. In very rare situations, if they don't like properly execute like the recovery, and the DPS player is just hard out playing them, then that's a rare case of like something happening over there. But for the most part, if it's two supports, they should survive. Alting is a weird situation. It really just depends on the DPS ult at hand. Um, because some DPS ults are like actual threat to kill, and some of them are more getting insane value and forcing out a lot of things, such that your team can then win the fight afterwards. So that one's on a case by case basis, and yeah, if you're playing around your defensive DPS or something like that, and that's also fine. Also, I don't know why people have this inherent idea of like needing shield tanks or anything like that. If your team is running dive, you know what's going to happen? It's trading backline simulator. You're not going to have a most pleasant game, but if your team trades the backline properly, they're going to win. That's it. Like your team just needs to win trade. Both teams need to trade backlines, and then it's a fight at the center, and then whoever wins that fight is like going to win the entire thing, right? That's the idea. Like dive just changes the order that the players fall in a team fight. I think that covers everything. Yeah. I don't know. Uh, yeah, that's about it. I don't know. Support players, like, please, for the love of God, I'm sure like there are plenty of good support players, but you guys need to realize like there's too much going for you now. Like, if we threw you back into what Season 1.0 supports were like, a lot of you would tank 200 elo right away, and that's a scary statement to think about. Like, we need to like these players need to start waking up and realizing that there's an inherent flaw with the role, and it needs to be addressed at some point, because otherwise they're just going to take away more and more DPS and tank players who are tired of the amount of sustain and self-survivability that there is. Yeah, I got nothing else. Goodbye.